I love building commander decks. Wizards of the Coast has been giving us a lot of options to build commander decks each year, and it gets harder and harder to choose. I looked at Tomer from MTG Goldfish's 2-in-1 construction method, and I decided to expand on it. So now I could stay on budget and build more decks. This construction method is really good for players who want to build those multiple decks in their favorite color combination, or they want to use more cards from their collection. But before we get into it, let's stay on the same page for deck construction. We're going to use a combination of the Command Zone and MTG Goldfish's methods for how to build your deck. Their recommendation for deck construction are at the heart of this system. On the screen, I have examples of their work to show where I'm coming from. The Command Zone has anywhere between 33 to 35 cards that are the sum total of the ramp, card draw, target removal, and board wipes. Whereas Tomer from MTG Goldfish's deck construction guide has anywhere between 32 to 35 cards in the same categories. These are key to make a deck function. Looking over these methods, I then decided to narrow it down to 30 pieces of ramp, 30 card draw, and 10 removal, with 3 board wipes for a total of 33 cards. You could say that this is the core part of a deck, which leads us into my module system. So what is core? Core part of a deck contains 65 universal cards, and a minimum of those 65 has to be 37 lands. If you do the quick math, it's a little bit more than 65, but don't worry, 20 of those remaining cards are the key cards. These key cards come from the previously mentioned Command Zone and Goldfish. You really, no matter what, those 28 cards have to be as close as you can to those recommendations. The difference will be in the unique 35. So when I did my 28 cards, on the screen I have my mono black core build. I have card draw, ramp, board wipe, graveyard removal to keep those graveyard players honest, and utility cards that are universal. Again, a lot of inspiration comes from MTG Goldfish, and so I have that reflected here. A more holistic view of it before going into the 35 is kind of having this mentality of there are 65 cards in your deck. That's 65% of your deck is going to be universal. And 35 cards will make your deck unique, or 35%. 30 cards roughly will be cards that fit your theme, and 5 cards will support that theme. So what is unique? Well, in this case, I am using my commander Drana to represent my vampire deck. It is a unique 35 cards, one of which is commander, and I'd like to point out that Drana is removal. 29 cards are the typo cards, aka they're the creatures, and 5 support cards to help round them out. So what am I talking here? I'm talking about Vanquisher's Banner, I'm talking about Urge to Feed, New Blood, all these things that make vampire decks very unique and makes that flavor just all so much better. So if you look more closely, you'll find Champion of Dusk is an example of card draw, and Feast of Blood is an example for removal. I'll have my decks posted in the video description, so you could look on Moxfield what the whole deck looks like. On the screen is my build. 100 cards will be the commander deck itself. So yay, I got all the pieces to add up. And the actual categories, I have 15 pieces of card draw, I have 11 removal, and 8 ramp cards. So I've actually exceeded the 33 minimum, and I've played this deck multiple times. It really does not need 10 pieces of ramp. I find that the deck itself is able to behave really well when you're able to control the board with removal and then refill your hand with some of the other cards like Necropotence or Phyrexian Arena. These ramp cards are, I think, just right anymore, and the deck starts to flood, at least from my experience. But this shows a really good example of you want to be as close as you can, but you don't have to follow it. It all depends on your deck. So what do you need to actually make this all work? Well, you need a deck box to be able to divvy up your components. I liked the triple deck holder, the 240 plus from GameGenic. When I started this process, this was out in production, but since I started, it's no longer there. So hopefully GameGenic watches this and gets more of these into production, because I really like these, and I'm sure if you all used them, you would also like them as well. But you could use any bundle box with some dividers, and it'll be fine. Probably the most important thing is perfect fits. So you have your deck with that's double sleeved, and the perfect fits will be what you mark your cards to determine what is part of the unique 35. I also recommend that you stick with a widely available sleeve. So I chose Dragon Shield Matte Black because that you can find it in any game store. It's almost guaranteed that a store will have it. If that's not your brand and you find that you want to use GameGenic, I recommend a color that is going to stick around. Black, red, yellow, some of the primary colors, they generally are more universal. Matte black just seems to be the one that I find that I like the most. So, if you do like something that has art, make sure you front load a bunch of that art. I would say, if you want to build a vampire deck and there's a cool vampire art from a sleeve company, make sure you could get enough of them so that way you front load for future add-ons. But that's up to you. Again, you'll see in a second what I'm talking about, that how you want to mark your cards. Don't use stickers, use a Sharpie. It's going to be the best way to keep your cards separate. Your core deck is going to be 65 unmarked cards, and then your unique 35 is going to be marked. And keep tabs on your decks with Moxfield. I'm not sponsored from any of these companies. I've just been using them as a consumer. I really like it to test my deck and to keep organized all my deck construction. Really easy to modify your decks in there too when you want to upgrade. If you look at my commander, Drana, and then the Synchromancer next to it, it has a little letter on the bottom left. My commander and the unique 34 cards next to it have the that little D. So that all represents that they all are with Drana, that all these cards are with Drana. Whereas like my lands and all the stuff from the core 65 are going to be unmarked. You can't tell a difference when you're playing. The only thing I would advise against is don't use stickers on your sleeves, because when you have 100 of them, they're eventually going to bulge and you're going to start having issues. And you could definitely tell when the card has a sticker versus doesn't have a sticker. So that's something I would say. Pick the first letter of your commander or first two, so that way you're able to distinguish what part is from the 35 and what is unique. You really got to ask, does it work? And I have to say it does, because I'm able to build more decks out of my cards. These are all play very differently, to be honest. They have they all are inside a single deck box that I don't have to buy different staples for it. I got lucky and I pulled Cabal Coffers, but if I had to buy Cabal Coffers for each of them, or Orborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, it's going to add up very quickly. So, as far as purchasing cards, it is a lot cheaper. Now, there is a con to it that front loading the price of sleeves can get expensive. Doing just I did my own cost analysis for my budget. If this method doesn't work for you, it's definitely something to keep in mind for the future, because the cost of sleeves versus buying a single card 4 times, it's going to be cheaper in the long run. For some cards or for some commanders, you do reduce the efficiency. While the deck is going to function very well if you stick with the previous methods, either from the command zone or from MTG Goldfish or the simplified version that I presented today, you're going to still have to make some cuts and make some difficult decisions of, well, do I want to put this card or that card in? No better example is the artifact deck right underneath Drana, though this one has a ton of synergies for artifacts, but because artifacts are very prevalent in the game, it gets difficult to choose what to put in and what not to put in. Same thing with vampires, as they one of the most popular kindred decks out there. It's it's going to be harder and harder for me to pick. Sometimes these typal decks want to have 40 of the creature type. Well, I chose 30 and cut the other 10 out. Well, it's not going to be the best, but at the same time, it is a lot of fun. And that's the important thing. Because then I could get mileage out of the other two, a card draw based deck and a spot removal based deck. They all play very differently. And I could put them all into a single box, take them into my backpack, go to a game store, play 4 different games. Out of all of this, I would say do what you can. There's no pressure to do this method. It's just another option that I wanted to give back to the Magic community. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching, and please like, comment, subscribe. Feel free to put questions about the deck construction in the comments. I will go ahead and look them over and I can reply. Big thanks to the Command Zone and to Tomer from MTG Goldfish for providing years of content to help with this. It's definitely made my experience as a Commander player much more enjoyable. So big thank you to you guys, and hopefully this is helpful, and have a great day.